Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Agency Life. And I have all the way from Australia, there's my accent.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good one.
You like it? This is Harry from StudioHawk. Welcome to Agency Life, Harry.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So Harry, I know that you have a story, a big story. You were recommended to definitely talk to you by Olga from SEMRush. We're going out with her episode today. And
Awesome.
when she told me about your business, I was like, yes, we definitely have to get on a call. Now, we have a link that I'm going to put in the show notes, which is your Forbes story about what everyone would know. But what I would like to ask you is, what happened that you were couch surfing and homeless when you were starting this agency? Talk to me about before that and then take us through where you were at, because that's one hell of a story, man.
Yeah, so I first got into the agency world when I was 14. So I picked up, I picked up my first kind of job there as a trainer. So I was doing SEO for a lot of affiliates and for a couple of companies beforehand. And someone picked me up and they said, would you be interested in doing training? So I rock up in dad's suit, day one of this digital agency, and they had no idea how old I was. And I didn't think, I just didn't think. So 14-year-old kid rocks up. Imagine in your agency, 14-year-old kid rocks up wearing this baggy suit. You've set aside your whole leadership team to do SEO training with this guy, right? And you're just kicking yourself. But to their credit, they let me have the whole day with their team, and I loved it. They loved it. And 2 weeks later, they called up asking if I could come in one day a week. And my family could use the money, so I did. I started working there one day a week, and that's how I got my first agency job.
Did that mean you stopped being in school?
I wagged school, so I just didn't go.
You wagged school. Oh my God.
Most kids are a lot cooler than me. They wag to go to the movies or wag to see friends. I was wagging to work at a company to do SEO. So
now,
I don't know if that makes me more cool or less cool.
Now, because I'm fluent Australian, I still have my Australian passport. We'll explain to the Americans and the UK, wagging is not like a tail on a dog.
Oh,
wagging is skipping.
Sorry.
That's okay. I can do the translations. I'm fluent. So yes, that's just skipping a day of school for anyone who's going, what is he talking about? So
sorry.
How long are you doing this? How long were you doing the training?
Well, I was doing that for a year, and then I moved over to another company. So I started doing the training one day, then 2 days, and I moved across to this other company when I was 16, and I was training. I was actually head of search when I was 16, and I was doing that 4 days a week. So I was only at school one day a week, so that wasn't great, but I still got through and got okay marks. I wouldn't say amazing marks, but I was working this agency and I absolutely loved it. I was doing all the training, all the hiring, even the firing when I was 16. So it was a massive learning experience. Yeah.
You must have been really emotionally into. Did you kind of grow up fast? Do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. Like people ask me that quite a bit, and it comes up, and it's weird. I don't know. I don't feel like I grew up any faster. I think given my circumstances, I had to mature a bit quicker. And I think working in an agency, I mean, you shape up or shape out. It's one of those things, isn't it? So I did get into that work ethic, that mindset quickly, and I guess in a way that matured me. Yeah.
And how come you ended up then in a situation where you were homeless and couch surfing when you started the agency 5 years ago?
Man, I remember. So I left that role. I was head of search. And when I was that age, I had this ego about me too. I think anyone that's 16, 17 that becomes, I only had a team of 6 or 7 there, but I felt like I was more important than I was. So I built up this ego about being God's gift to SEO or something. What I did was I literally walked away from the company, no notice, no nothing, and I started my own. That's so dumb, so rude, but anyway, so I started this company, StudioHawk, 5 years ago, and I put 4,000 Australian into it. And that was all the money I had in my bank account. And then unfortunately, my mum was homeless at the time, and my dad was staying with a person he was seeing. And we had a lot of disagreements over all sorts of things. But she saw the opportunity that I had just put all this money in the company to throw me out. And
Oh,
literally as quick as that, this is what I always say to people, you don't realize, you can look at homeless people on the street and be like, oh man, they must be on drugs or done something awful. You don't realize how close you can be to being homeless. So I was on the streets.
wow.
I couldn't go with mum. I didn't have any friends because of this agency, and I burnt all my bridges there like an idiot. And so literally I was, figuring out what the hell I was going to do. I had no clients, no money, no nothing. So I was just shoestringing it together.
Which city were you in?
Melbourne,
In
Australia.
Melbourne. And what
Yeah.
time of year was it?
Would have been autumn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, it was pretty terrible. Melbourne it's kind of like weather like something like Seattle, rainy a little bit.
Yeah.
Not extremely hot, not extremely cold, but it was, yeah, it was finding a place to stay, and most importantly, like find some way to get clients or get money or something. So
Mm.
everyone assumes that getting food's the hard part. To be honest, getting food and showers and all that kind of thing aren't as difficult. But getting shelter or a stable place to stay or work is, yeah, really tough.
Yeah. So what did you do?
There's an organization there that I now work with called St. Vinny's. I don't know if you have
Yeah.
them over
Yeah,
in the
we have
States.
we know about I know about them. St. Vincent de Paul, isn't it, originally, and it's called Vinny's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so they had these places and they had all these great people to help you through and people to talk to. And one really thing the amazing thing they had was they had Wi-Fi and phones. And so I would sit on the computer, and I became known at that Vinny's because I would go there, and they would always say I was always on the computer, and I used it like the floor like a sales room. Like I was walking around talking to clients and prospects, and you know how you stroll around.
Yes.
That's what I was
Yeah.
doing. I was talking to these people, and because at the time I didn't have any clients, I was doing free SEO work for people until they got results. And if you
Wow.
work in SEO, that's a nightmare.
Yes.
But that's what I had to do, right? I literally had no other choice. I would never do it today, but back then that was the only thing to do. So that's what I did, and hustling with these clients to show them what I was doing. And yeah, it wasn't until a few months of doing that, in between couch surfing and sleeping out on the streets, that I finally got my first client.
Do you remember that first client?
Oh man, I sure do. I still remember that first client. I remember it didn't feel real. It didn't feel real until I used that money to get a share house. So a share house is like $80 a week, like real
Mm.
bottom of the barrel kind of stuff. But that was enough. And I just remember crying the whole
Yeah.
first day I got that place and just going, oh man, this is I'm onto something here. Like
Yeah.
if I can get some more of this and kind of build this up, that's what I'll do. And it was funny because everyone always, people ask and they go, how did you know you were going to be so successful? Like, how did you know that? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely no idea. I was trying to put a roof above my head. And even when I had the share house, when I had a semi-stable roof above my head, I was just thinking, well, I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to keep pushing.
Yeah. Does that client know the impact that they had in your life?
Oh yeah, that client does, and they've become quite close to me
Excellent.
throughout that kind of journey, and they've been really instrumental in that. So they've gone through their own series of highs and lows, not quite to the same level, but the highs and lows of business.
Correct. Yeah.
And yeah, so we catch up regularly and chat and go through those things. But man, it was insane. Like, and even just the next few clients, I mean, far out, because they referred me a ton of clients. We did well, when I say we, I'm so used to saying that now. I used to do, because I was really doing all this work and pouring, 40 hours into one client, right? Could you
Right.
imagine
Yeah.
paying a guy $500 Australian, about 300 US, roughly 250 pounds, and he's working 40 hours a week nonstop on your account, right? That's what was happening.
Yeah, they were like, good, we're getting really good value out of this.
Yeah,
Not
and their
knowing,
results were insane.
not knowing
Yeah, I
that's
mean, we've
not the
got
norm.
exactly right, and we've got enterprises now that would love that.
Yeah.
But even they, it's a hefty price. 40 hours a day for an SEO specialist. That's or 40 hours a week. Geez, not
Yeah,
a day.
for
40 hours a week for an
for
SEO specialist.
500 Aussie,
Yeah, exactly.
something else. So
Yeah,
talk to me then
exactly.
about what happened next. What was the next couple of years like then, as you got out of the share house and the clients that you work with? It's all SEO work, right?
Yeah, All SEO. So I started out and into it because Dad got burnt by an SEO agency. That's how I learned how to do SEO. He lost a lot of his business and stuff through getting locked into a contract. So
Oh,
I always said I'm never gonna do locking contracts, and so we still don't. We're still entirely month to month.
amazing.
And I just fell in love with SEO. Honestly, I just love the perfect mix of creativity and logic. And I always thought, I can't be the best at everything. I'm never going to be able to be good at everything. So I started out doing SEO and AdWords. That's when I became head of search. And when I founded StudioHawk, I just did SEO. I just decided I'm literally just going to do SEO, right? Just focus on one thing, and I want to be the best at it. So that's what I did. And people told me you couldn't do it. You can't start a company just doing SEO. But here we are now today.
Look at
So
it now. My God,
yeah, that's
absolutely.
it.
Like the changes over the last few years have been
Mm.
incredible. So what type of work do you enjoy doing and type of clients? Tell us the kind of like what's the business look like now?
Sure. So what's the business look like now? So obviously we built it up and grew it mostly off referrals.
Mm,
We never did a lot of cold outreach or anything like that. We don't have any sales team even to this day. So we're 22 SEO specialists in Melbourne,
right.
and 2 in London.
Cool.
So in Australia, that puts us as the largest SEO team by a large margin, probably double the second
Mm-hmm.
largest SEO team. We work with a lot of Australian brands that you probably wouldn't know, like Officeworks and The Good Guys, but we also work with a lot of international brands like Invato and New Balance and those kind of brands. And Nando's are a big thing over in London. Whenever I'm in London, I'm always doing that. Yeah, we work
Great.
with Nando's, and they're like, whoa.
That's
So,
mad.
so yeah, it's
Nando's
been
is
insane. It's been
chicken.
insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
sorry, and I
around the
never
world.
would have thought that we
Yeah.
would be doing anything anywhere near that caliber when I started the agency. And here we are today, just by literally transparent month to month, good work, doing one thing, staying in our lane, focusing on growing a culture and a good team, and investing in training. And I mean, there's a lot of things to it, isn't there? It's not quite as simple as it feels or seems, but
That's true.
yeah, it's been a wild journey.
Oh, I can hear that in your voice, absolutely. Because you got recommended through Olga at SEMRush, tell us when you came across SEMRush and talk to us about how you actually
Yeah.
work with them.
Olga's an absolute weapon. I love Olga to
Right?
bits. I
Yeah,
think I've known Olga for 2.5, almost 3 years now.
yeah.
I came across her at I met her at an SEO meetup, like that I was co-running in Melbourne about getting
Mm,
people into the community. And then I met her again. She did a speech there, and we kind of briefly spoke, did a dinner like with a group. Then I met her again at the SEMRush Awards.
right.
They do these awards in Australia, and we were lucky enough to win. So I caught up with Olga, and we had a proper chat then. But it wasn't till so SEMRush Summer Jam. I think we flew over. I think about a year ago, we flew over to Portugal, and SEMrush kind of does these events, and they invite all these top digital marketers globally. And I was just chatting to her on this bus ride in between different places we were going. I just remember being so impressed by her and hearing about the way she talks about other people in the industry. It was never bagging them out, always good
Yeah,
things. And her journey herself is remarkable and really awesome to see. But just an absolute powerhouse. So yeah, that's how I came across SEMrush. We use them for a lot of our software and tools, and we use them because they're good.
mm,
Um, they're just a good tool. They're good for site auditing. They're good for checking things or even just cross-checking things.
yeah.
So they've become a big part of what I think a lot of agencies do now. SEMrush and those kind of tools, they form a kind of stack of what we use.
Yeah, and you're using it in an unusual way with the education that they have with your clients. So can you share a little bit
Yeah.
about that? Because that's what really lit up the conversation when we were talking, was the way
Yeah,
you
gotcha.
use their university or something like that.
Yeah, so SEMrush have a university, also that I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but we're also doing some kind of collaborations and stuff in
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so we use that university in our own training to actually teach our people how to do SEO. So we have a really weird way of hiring. I've always said you can hire seniors and you can hire juniors, but mids are the hardest people to hire. And so we very, very, very rarely would hire any mid-level SEO specialists. So seniors, we would bring in guys like big names in to work with us that we know in the industry, and juniors we have to train, which works into this training module. So we've built out this entire custom training module using that SEMRush Academy, as well as our own learning center to literally checklist and compartmentalize every little part of SEO. It runs for about 6 months. It's pretty intensive. And it goes through everything that you could possibly need to know in SEO to go from a junior to a mid-level. And we partnered in with SEMRush to do that with our staff, but also we're starting to do that with clients.
Yeah, this is the really interesting part.
Yeah. So with our clients, we're launching that kind of same thing, and we're doing that same thing with guys like Bauer Media, massive publishing companies in Australia, or even just big billion-dollar brands. We're teaching them internally through our system and the SEMRush University how to use these tools and how to understand SEO better. Because I'm sure you've seen out there, Microsoft studies on the most in-demand hard skills for 2020 and beyond. And on the top of that list was SEO.
Right. Yeah.
The most in-demand hard skill for marketers was SEO. And unfortunately, in Australia and even in London, anywhere I've been in the world, there is a lack of good SEO talent. So that training module that we've done and brought in has been awesome. And to see clients using it, I mean, the value is immense, because once people understand SEO and they understand, that it's a science. Now, I hate the saying that SEO is more of an art than a science, because in 2020 it really isn't. It's science. It's a science-based algorithm. And we teach them how to do that, how to control that, how to write for it, how to purpose for it, and they go nuts. Like, we're talking billion-dollar company might be 20% month on month up. That's insane.
That's
huge. That's insane money. And where does that come from? That's not just a massive pat on the back for the work we do. That's education.
Right.
That's teaching their team what SEO is. And you know how we have this mobile first thinking? It's becoming an SEO first thinking, that SEO first methodology.
Excellent. And because I think when I heard you doing this, I was like, absolutely, because clients will hire you and they pretend they know what they're hiring you for, right? So they'll use the buzzwords, you use the buzzwords, but really it's such a surface level. I've always said this to people outside of the agency community, going, anyone outside the agency doesn't know what's going on, or really knows their own job, but has an awareness that's very, very slim. It's a tiny bit, because if they did understand and did enjoy the agency world, they'd be in the agency world. you know
exactly. So right.
If they were an SEO, if they really did enjoy SEO, they would be working as an SEO person. So when you're working 100%. With these clients, they do a lot of shaking their head, especially if you're in a large meeting and you've got the CMO, you've got the marketing director, you've got the marketing team. A lot of people don't want to say to you, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to say that.
So there's so much shaking heads, so much yeah, so much when the monthly report comes through and you show the numbers are whatever the numbers are, and they're up or they're down or whatever, they're still shaking their head because they can't go back and say, I actually didn't know what you said in that first meeting, but it sounded 100%. Good enough, right? So what you're doing is taking all of that out and going, let's educate you on what the benefits are of SEO so that they can understand it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We were sitting around and just one day we went, man, we're sick of clients not understanding SEO, but we can't complain, because what are we doing to teach them? And so that's how we came up with this idea. We're like, you know what, bugger it, we're going to teach them. We're going to do this campaign and we're going to teach them at the same time. Yeah. And we found the more we taught them, the more they appreciated what we did.
Yeah. And then this, I think, if any agency, no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing chatbots for clients, whether you're doing inbound marketing campaigns, whatever you are doing, there is an element of educating them. You're not going to do yourself out of a job. If anything, you're going to get even more work because they actually understand the value of what you're doing.
Exactly right. I mean, we do work from SMEs all the way up to enterprise. We've got chockers amount of enterprise work right now.
Yeah.
We're not even looking for more work in that sector, but SMEs, it's the same thing. Like, I can run an SME on a, $1,500 a month SEO campaign, right? That's the equivalent of like 700 or 800 pounds. I think it's maybe 1,000 US.
Mhm.
a month, and you can do a lot for that, but it comes back to educating the client, right? So, you know, you have to have that buy-in to the client. They're going to do the things that we talk about and recommend and walk through, and all the other components of it.
Brilliant.
But yeah, without that education, I mean, that really stumps you, really
Yeah.
stumps you.
It really does. So when I heard that, I was like, genius. And, you know, so one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is that,
Mm,
so talk to me. You woke up one morning and you were in Melbourne and you went, you know what, this isn't enough for me. I need to be in London. How did that happen?
yeah. Good question. Yeah. So we did well in Melbourne. We grew out in Australia. We did well there, and we're on track to grow and probably double over the next 12 months, which is insane, and just a testament to the awesome team. I mean, I'm still amazed and just staggered by how how much a good team impacts what you do. But yeah, London. So we were doing that in Australia, and we started capturing all these big brands and doing all this stuff. And as you do, you sit there and you think, what's next? How am I going to challenge myself more? And you sit there and you think, well, my goal was always to be the best in Melbourne, and then it became to be the best in Australia. And then we were rewarded SEMRush as Agency of the Year in 2019, and got all this kind of traction, and won Optus's Business of the Year here and the Australian Marketing
Oh,
Award.
cool.
And you just sit there and you go, this is awesome, but what's next? And so I looked at London. A lot of my buddies in the industry were telling me about London, how they're doing all this cool stuff and they're leading the enterprise market and doing all these really awesome things in SEO. So I said, let's go to London. I want to be the best. I can't be the best in the world in Australia, so I'm going to need to be in London. So that's exactly what I did. I flew over there. I flew over there a few times, sussed it out, caught up with some really, really cool guys in the industry, including Ross Tavendale and Kevin. Those kind of guys, big kingpins in that industry, and just found they were lovely, really awesome dudes. Genuinely helped me see the UK market, and there was a massive gap in that market around the SME sector. So the big end of town in London is, wow, really well serviced. You got 60-person SEO teams. So what I wanted to do is bring what we did in Australia with the SMEs up into London and grow that from there. So that's exactly what we did. And already we've surpassed our first 2 years in Australia revenue in 6 months.
Whoa.
So we've got a dedicated GM over there, myself as well, flies over a lot. But that's honestly the reason why. Like, we want to learn, we want to do better, we want to improve, and I feel like we've got the most of what we can in Australia. So it's time to take it to that world scale.
Yeah, incredible. And you have to be up here. You can't do it from down there. You know, you have
Absolutely,
to be up, and you have to put the presence in. And then from London, you've got all of Europe. You know, it's only
exactly
an
right.
hour,
And that's
yeah,
so short, huh? Like
yeah.
in Australia, like we do all these conferences all over Australia, and we're just starting to do conferences in the UK. So that's a bit of a plug, actually. If anyone knows any conferences coming up, let me know. But yeah, and so you go to London and Europe, and I remember going on a flight to Amsterdam and going and almost forgetting my passport because it was only an hour. That's a
Right.
24-hour flight from Australia.
If you're lucky.
Right?
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky, huh? So yeah, it's insane how close everything is over there.
Yes, it is, but yet completely uniquely different. Even though it's only an hour, Amsterdam is completely different
So
culture and
different,
different.
huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so crazy.
yeah, it's one of the things because I lived down in Sydney for 12 years, and yeah, I did. It's quite funny. When I lived in Europe, I didn't really appreciate it so much. You know, I was always going to the States. I didn't. I was kind of like Europe, you know, whatever. But once I got home, I really do value
Oh
that
yeah.
it's all an hour away, and it's 2 hours away to
Oh
have
yeah.
a completely unique experience. And the Nordics, and I've managed to visit Finland and Sweden and all the Nordic countries, which I'd never been to before, which has been quite it's quite different. I definitely value being up this side of the world for flights. I can tell you that. So when are you
Yeah,
back up again, Harry? When's the next trip back up to London?
I think I'm heading there in another couple of months. A month,
Awesome.
2 months is the current plan. So I'm trying to go 4 times a year.
Right.
I just came back, so another couple of months I'll fly up. I'm also going to the States for something. I'll be there in July. I'll be there for Brighton SEO on the back half of the
Oh
year.
yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm up there fairly often, and of course Anthony's there permanently now.
Your GM.
Yeah, the GM over there. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's really nice. I love meeting people over there. Like if you're listening to this, feel free to just reach out and say, hey, next London trip, let's do a coffee or a drink or something.
Awesome. We
Maybe not
can.
a coffee. Your coffees aren't that good over there, if I'm being
Oh, come
perfectly
on
honest.
now.
But we can definitely do a drink. We can
You're
definitely
not
do a
going.
drink.
You're not going to the right places.
Yeah, apparently not.
You'll need to. Okay, so hit Harry up if you know if he for good coffee places. And by
Yeah,
good, I think you have to have had a few Australian coffees to know what a
Melbourne
good
standard coffees.
Melbourne
Yeah.
standard coffees.
If
Okay,
if it's a one button coffee, it's not a coffee.
that's
That's
not a
not a
coffee.
coffee.
No, that's not how you do it. Cool. Okay, and how would people reach you, Harry? What's the best way to? I usually ask this at the end, but tell us
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
the
yeah.
best way.
Oh, sorry. Best way to reach me probably on LinkedIn, Harry Sanders there, or
Awesome.
Facebook,
Yeah.
or the website. Standard ways. Also on
Perfect.
Twitter, but I'm not using that too much.
Yeah, I dip in for if there's something happening. We had the
Yeah,
elections.
exactly.
We had the
Right.
elections here in Ireland, and Twitter was
Oh, really?
good crack to read. Yeah, so
Yeah.
interesting. So, with have there been any challenges with the actual what's a sort of a challenge that you've experienced by opening up a London office? Because I think agencies would love to hear that. What's something that you weren't expecting? What's gone easier, and what's
Yeah.
unexpectedly not working as
Yeah.
well as you would like it?
Yeah, so it's a whole different ball game, huh? Like Australia's got its own culture and its own different way of doing things. We can be a very skeptical lot in Australia as well. We're different in the biggest way I would say is London can be a lot more transactional, right? Once you know you're doing something, you see the tangible benefit, boom, lockdown, done. And so that works well in that regard. But one thing that was a massive culture shock in London is it can be very closed off, right? In Australia, it's a lot easier to go to a networking event or meet someone and catch up and hit it off. In London, I found it to be quite difficult. You've got your closed business groups like Soho House and all these closed clubs. And unless you're someone in the industry, you're not a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first London trip, I did absolutely none of that. I didn't know about any of these business groups or anything like that. So I was just out there wondering why nobody wanted to talk to me. It wasn't until the second London trip that I actually leveraged my network that I was able to connect with people and meet people a lot easier.
Yeah.
So that was very different. That give it a go attitude was different in Melbourne versus London.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that to be a big thing.
Yeah, I've experienced that both sides because I've lived in
Yeah.
the UK for a couple of years. I personally feel it's to do with the old class system.
Yeah, I think so.
Hierarchy, who are you? When you're in the UK, it's very they're looking for rankings subconsciously, even though that world
Yeah.
is gone, but there still is hierarchies, royalty, class system, lower class, upper class, middle. But in Australia, it's flat. It is.
Yeah.
If you are on, like, you're a classic Australian story. Like you were homeless and building a business at the same time, right? I don't think that would have been as easy for you.
I don't think so either.
Or even possible in the UK, because they'd be checking you out, like, where do you live? What are you doing? What's that noise in the background? They'd be more curious about where are you physically currently now, as opposed to the Aussies who were just going, what can you do for me? Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
That 100% agree. And so that was tough in that first trip, and that second trip was where because being a young dude, right? I'm 22 now. Most people in London will not even look at you.
That's right. Yeah.
The business is valued at 10 million Australian dollars. Is the best offer we've had for it. We're not for sale, so don't get that. But yeah, in London, like that, unless I started saying that in conversations, it meant nothing. Whereas in Australia, if you're talking about how much your company's worth and this and that, everyone thinks you're a bit of a tosser.
Yeah. They switch off. They're like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, all right, man, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas in London, it is a big thing unless people figure out where you are. The other obvious thing is the time zones. It's a 13-hour difference.
Wow.
So it's 8:35 where I am right now. That means London is just waking up.
That's right.
And they're rearing to go. So my GM's probably going to slack me any minute. wondering what happened in Australia, and I'll give him an update on that. And then at the end of the day, he signs off and gives me an update in London.
Yeah.
The massive advantage of that we found is we've basically got 24-hour coverage.
Awesome.
If something happens in Australia and we need something done overnight, it's no longer, oh man, I'm going to have to pull a late one. It's flickered to Anthony. Anthony will sort it out. Wake up in the morning, it's done.
Super.
So that's a pretty massive advantage. Same with London. London will like flick something back to Australia, be like, we need to get this done by tomorrow. Might be 301 redirects that are going live in the next day.
Yeah.
And they get done. And so that's been awesome. But yeah, that time zone and the flights are a killer.
Yeah, it's not much fun, those flights. You really have to love flying, don't you?
Oh yeah, I'd never been on a plane or never properly been like overseas till I was an adult. But over the past year, I've racked up enough points to go like emerald status and platinum on this. Mate, I've lots of flying. It's
funny when you do lots of flying then, and somebody will say to you, oh, what are you going to do for a holiday? You know, like, and I've been a bit like this recently. I'm going, I just don't want to be on a plane.
Not on a plane.
I want to get in a car and like go around go around Ireland, you know, go somewhere local.
How funny is that? Yeah.
Yeah. And even if somebody gave me going, here, you can go to Bali, I'd be like, no. Thanks. It's a plane. Yeah. I've just done, 20 trips so far. It's funny how you think of that. You say you've all your points, but you'd prefer to drive somewhere.
Exactly right. Like I think we've got 3 million points or something at the moment, so I can fly wherever I want to.
But you're like,
I don't shit no. Sorry. Yeah. I would rather get in a car and drive to a national park and camp there or something.
Yes, yeah. I'd have a simple life. It's funny with all the flying. But we talk. You've said this enormous success and this expansion and London, and the future looks so bright. But on the show, we love to share some mistakes that you made, because by sharing the mistake, maybe an agency owner is listening and they go, "Oh, I'm in the middle of that right now." So, what would be one of the mistakes that you made as you were building the agency that you would share with us?
Oh, lots of mistakes. I would say a few big mistakes I've made. Number one is not having a cemented company structure.
Right.
I used to think that I could be the report for everything and everyone would report to me, and that falls apart after you get to about 6 people.
6 people, that's the number. Yeah.
6 people. After 6, you need an org chart or a structure that everyone refers back to and is aware of. So that was a massive thing, and we were halted until we figured that out. And that'll happen at every stage of the company. So at this stage in the company, I have 2 reports, our GM in London, our GM in Australia, and 3, and our office manager. Okay. Everyone else is a team lead, which reports to the GM, and you start building these more concrete structures as you grow. But you've got to keep your mind out on that, and also hiring in advance. Big mistake I see a lot of people make is they make their first few hires and they don't train them because they're too busy.
Yes.
That first hire you make is instrumental. You should hire them early before you're fully booked so that you can train them to properly deal with clients so that you can grow more.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're totally strapped. You're totally stuck.
Yeah. You're putting them under pressure. They don't get a chance to settle in. Absolutely. They don't get a chance to bond. They feel under pressure. They feel like they don't feel fulfilled because they know that they're not delivering at the potential that you want them to, but they didn't have the time to get there.
Exactly right.
It's not good, is it?
Yeah, it's terrible. The other thing that helps is having a clear vision, that clear mission. So our mission is to provide opportunity for our clients and our staff, right? So whether that's picking up people that may have been doing it tough, we've hired people all walks of life into SEO positions, or whether that's helping clients see the opportunity that they get. But that's a mission that we rally behind, and the team gets that. We want to help people, so we're more interested in doing work because it's not just work to us; it's actually changing people's lives.
Yeah, it's transforming businesses.
Exactly right. So when we hire a new person, it's not just another person. We see it as one more life that we can make an impact on.
Amazing.
And so that's been big. And so many mistakes, man. I'm just going through and reeling them off here. Hiring people just because they got tons of experience. I mean, that's something you got to be so careful of. The other mistake I see people make, they'll see someone come through on a big salary, 120K, and they'll go, "Yep, this person's senior in the industry. Let's bring them on." Now, senior staff can be some of the most difficult people to work with because they have an ego about them, an ego established, and they might not always be right. But if you don't have the proper processes or procedures in place, they can really crumble a company that's foundations.
Right.
So getting them in too early or not knowing what to do with them can be catastrophic. So I made that mistake a couple of times. So that's why you got to have a support structure and actually properly train them in to the company rather than just like,
onboarding,
here's your team.
Yeah.
Best of luck now. Have fun.
Proper plan, proper onboarding, every day planned out. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of this comes out to planning, doesn't it? I would say a lot of my jobs transition to planning and business stuff. Like I've got a finance meeting at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I've got a meeting with our advisory board. All these things that come into play as you get an agency that scales.
Right.
There's a lot more things. I mean, we're doing about 3.4 mil in rev now. So there's a lot more things that we need to consider as we grow and change and pivot that we certainly didn't when we started out. Like I wouldn't have had a finance team. I was doing all the books myself. I was figuring out the tax system as I went.
Watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, watching YouTube video on company tax. Oh, what's this thing? Yeah.
Okay, I'm really pleased to hear that you've got a team leaders in, because I do. It's probably one of the first roles when I'm working with an agency, when I'm doing business coaching with an agency, is I've seen that gap where all these people are feeding in to either the owner or one person, and they forget that all the things that a person, a human being needs in their business, that's very different from an entrepreneur. But like you can work like all hours of the day and night. You can live on nothing. You can live on the couch. you know that, but you're a certain type of person. Like when you're employing employees who are a different type of personality, they have different needs. Can you share the difference that having a team leader and what they actually physically do, and what difference that's made for the business?
Yeah. Oh man. So a team leader so the structure we have these teams, right? There's a few teams. A team is comprised of 2 juniors, 2 mids, a senior, and a team leader, right? And they all report into the team leader reports into the general manager.
Yeah.
Now the role of that team leader is instrumental because they are coordinating the different actions that take place, right? Yeah. They're across the campaign, but they're coordinating the juniors into their training, so they're being coached on what's next, and they've constantly got a training checklist and a career plan.
Yeah.
The mids get support on the accounts that they're managing, and they know what to do. The seniors relieved of time so that they can focus on very technical enterprise level accounts and doing that kind of stuff. The team leader bundles it all together to mobilize their team, educate them, and bring them into like the GM might hold an all team leader training session where all the team leaders attend this thing. But without that team leader communicating in between, there's just too much information. Like a single person shouldn't have more than 5 direct reports.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's about funneling it so that a team lead can report to the GM successfully and doing those things.
Amazing. That's really good. And do they do one-to-ones, like talk to each person on the team and go, how's your week? What's going on at home? When are you going on holidays? Are things okay? Do you need a hand with anything? Like coaching them personally as well.
Of course.
And if you think of that's 5 people on a team, that's 5 hours. If you think as an agency owner that you've got time to do 5 hours of individual one-on-one talking and being present, not like on your phone or doing something else, I think that's a huge revelation that agency owners didn't realize. They just went, I thought I could hire people, but they would be like me. They would be self-starting. They don't need to talk about stuff. They just get on with it. And figuring that out, it's incredible. And great to hear that it's made a big difference to your company, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Super. What other, do you have any tips for agency owners out there about work-life balance? How do you manage all of this? What do you do on those long haul flights? do you solve big problems on those long haul flights? What's your kind of work-life balance when it comes to managing your life and your business?
Work-life balance, I probably work about 60-hour weeks now. Probably started out working 80. I could very comfortably work 40-hour weeks now.
Awesome.
Very comfortably. The reason, and it goes in this wave, right? When you start out, you're working 80 hours. I don't care who you are. Welcome to life. You're working 80 hours. Then it goes through different phases in the business, right? You start getting new team members. You don't really start getting your time back until you have a company that can operate independently of you. So between my London trips and my traveling, the company needs to be able to operate without me. If
Absolutely, yeah.
something happens to me tomorrow, the company will be fine. They will run without me. They won't have, and I'm not sure if Olga talks about this, they won't have a 6-month plan or a 12-month plan, which is what my role is mostly about.
Right.
But their day-to-day will be totally okay.
Yeah.
So that's been a big thing in getting my life back. So I spend a lot of my time just, ticking the boxes, spending time on campaigns, which I still love doing. A lot of agency owners completely transitioned to the business side.
Yeah.
But I still want to be involved there.
Good.
But on long haul flights, man, audiobooks. Olga and I are nerding out over audiobooks. Olga, if you watch this, remember I beat you. You were bragging about having more audiobooks than anyone else, but I had you beat. So
how many do you have now?
oh, geez, I have hundreds, and also my listening time. So it wasn't just like I would have
it's
to
okay
check
buying them, but do you listen to them?
yeah, my listening time. I think I average. Geez, I'd have to check, but I average probably about 80 hours a month listening to audiobooks. That's a lot. That's about 2 hours a day. Like, so on long haul flights, I'll be listening to books. In car trips, I'll be listening to books. And what I do is I listen to one business book, one fiction book, one business book, one fiction book.
Oh, cool.
Because too much business, like, cogs down your brain and you don't have that creative side. You get the fiction book that helps bring out that creative. And you think of weird ways, man, I think of the craziest ideas when I'm listening to fiction books. Some of our best ideas are listening to a fiction book. And I'm like, man, how sick would that be if we could apply something like that to our agency?
Give us a recommendation of a fiction book that you've listened to recently. I've never listened to.
You know what? That's awesome. Everyone always asks for business book recommendations.
No.
I love a book series called The Cycle of Gallant.
Okay.
It's a great book. It's got no technology in it, right? But it tells the story of, and maybe this is why I like it, but someone that comes from nothing, working their way up, to finding a place in this quite political, difficult climate of a world that he lives in. So
awesome.
I think it's a great story. A lot of life lessons along the way as well. So definitely
The Cycle of Gallant.
Gallant, yeah.
Gallant. Okay, we'll put a link for that in the show notes. That's really good. What do you do when you're not working? What would tear you away from what do you have hobbies, or because it is so easy to just keep working, But what do you do to not work?
And when you love it, it's so hard, isn't it?
I know. Right?
When I'm not working, I'm exploring, and literally, like, I might get in a car and there's a lot of national parks nearby. I'll just drive to a national park and explore a national park, almost pretend like that I'm going through the forest or the jungle, and it's just release. Tennis is a great one.
Oh, cool.
All those kind of things I enjoy doing a lot.
Awesome.
And they're all things like when you're hiking, you might be thinking or like almost meditating as you walk, like in the Grampians or a national park. But tennis is great. Tennis is when you just don't want to think about work.
Yeah.
When you're on the tennis court, you're serving that ball, you're returning that ball, you are not thinking about work. You are in that game.
Yeah.
Right? So I love that. I love sometimes being forced to be taken away from what I do and the work I do to think about those things.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap it up, but we're gonna leave with one tip. But before I ask you for your tips, I'm gonna ask you for a tip for an agency. Somebody listening, maybe they're starting out, or maybe they're feeling a bit tired or they're a bit flat. But we're gonna ask a tip. But I'm gonna give a tip that I just have taken from what you have just talked about. If you're an agency owner sitting here and listening to this and thinking about Harry's story of flying 24 hours, being unavailable, right? So long haul flight, right? And if that's making you nervous because you think, oh, my agency wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be able to leave my agency, like, you have a problem, correct? Right? If you can't be on a long haul flight, if you can't be off Wi-Fi, unavailable for 24 hours because you were afraid that something will happen in your age or somebody needs you, it's time to look at putting some structure in place so that you can, because at the very least you should be able to take a holiday at the very least, you should be able to take a 24-hour flight. So
Yeah.
that's one of the tips that I'm going to give an agency listening out there. And what about you? What's your kind of go-to tip for new agencies out there?
Yeah, well, I love that one, and the tip you just gave is awesome, and it is also, you have a responsibility to your staff. If you have a team and you have a staff, you've got to think about what happens if I'm not here tomorrow, right? You've got these people employed and in jobs, but my best tip is find your why, and there's a great TED talk on that and a lot of things. But if you're operating a business for money, or you're not sure why you're operating a business, you can often become lost, and you're not sure where that lighthouse is, that beacon that you're working towards. And so finding out your why do you get up in the morning? And I don't want to hear money. I want to hear why. Do you want to invest in people? Do you want to provide opportunities? Do you want to change the world? But why do you do it? Once you figure out that why and what impact you're making to that why, you would be astounded by how much of a difference that simple thing makes in your day-to-day life.
Incredible. That is wonderful advice. Harry, I can see the sun has gone down in Melbourne and we're just starting up here. You're going to have Anthony on the Slack.
Yeah. I can already see it. It's already orange, glowing with notifications.
Full of beans, rested after the weekend, ready for a Monday. You're about to wind down. So I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's been incredible learning about your journey. Your future is so bright, and you've got an incredible business there, an incredible future ahead of you. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on another episode of Agency Life next week.